Hey St. Catharines, Mayor Matt Cisco here. Welcome to episode number 2 of talkSTC. We've got an interesting episode coming up today. A couple of great guests. We're going to start off in the first half of our show. We're going to talk about where we are, where we're going, and what the city is looking forward to in the first term of council, because we have our CAO, David Oakes, and our Deputy CAO, Erin to chat with us. In the second half of the show, we're also going to be having a great conversation with my friend Doug Hamilton and the chair of the 2022 Canada Summer Games here in Niagara. We'll talk about the success of the games and also the legacy of the games. But as I stated, we're going to start first today with Dave Oakes and Erin O'Hosky. Dave, Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Dave Oakes is our CAO here in the city of St. Catharines. He is a Brock University and a Waterloo University grad. He's held various positions with both the city of St. Catharines and the Niagara region since 2000, but was named the CAO of the city of St. Catharines in 2021. Did I get the bio correct?
Pretty good. Yes, I'll take it.
Excellent.
Thanks.
And then we also have Erin O'Hosky, as I said, our Deputy CAO here in the city of St. Catharines. University of Western with a Bachelor of Arts and a Master's in Public Admin. All of that at Western?
All of it at Western.
I will say I want to make fun of you, but I'm not going to. But 2 decades of experience in the municipal sector. You've got a proven track record working with councils, with CAOs, and leadership teams to successfully complete strategic plans and special projects. I will say one of my favorite things about you is that you worked with FCM. You want to give us a little description of what FCM is?
Yeah, FCM is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and it advocates for over 1,000, I think it's about 1,400 or 1,500 members across Canada to the federal government. So achieve things like the gas tax, which we in St. Catharines enjoy that revenue still to this day.
Awesome. But as I said, one of my favorite things, just because those bigger organizations have such a great capacity to help municipalities try and accomplish all of our goals, and to do it in a group setting, I think is one of the best ways forward. So let's be completely honest first and foremost. What does a CAO or a deputy CAO do?
Let me kick that one off, and then Erin can add to it. But it's an interesting position, because essentially I'm the head of the administrative side. Erin and I were a team, head of the administrative side. So we have, at any given time in the year, in the summer, we have upwards of 1,000 full-time, part-time, casual student employees. So we're responsible to our employees. We are also responsible to a council, to the mayor, to try to implement the objectives within the strategic plan and any of the reports and the policies that are coming forward from council. At the same time, we're trying to balance that with the expectations of the community, whether it's the business community, the residents, or just the general Niagara region and broader Ontario community. So we definitely wear a lot of hats as a CAO, trying to balance both the departmental issues on a day-to-day basis, but at the same time trying to really build a long-term plan for the corporation to be able to move forward and position us to be a sustainable and diverse community moving forward. So Erin is really strong on working with our employees and really strong on the strategic side. So you always surround yourself with good people, and I feel like I have one of the best deputy CAOs I can have. So.
Thank you, Dave. It's very nice. Also, you stole my answer, but I'll
sorry.
continue. But I think, it's really that. It's, Dave and I don't see ourselves as a top-down organization. We're really at the bottom supporting the teams that we serve. And we know these teams, there's hundreds of business lines that our city's involved in, everything from offering swimming lessons to making sure parks are maintained. So there is just hundreds and hundreds of business lines, and we know the folks that are doing those roles know their jobs best, and they have ideas on how to serve our residents and businesses better. So we're here to listen, we're here to support that. At the same time, we can't have conversations that are relevant unless we know the expectations of council and we know what's most important to our community. So really our role is that of, balancing the two, making sure our teams are supported to deliver the best possible services they can to our residents every single day, while still making sure we have that lens of what council's here to do and what the community needs from our organization.
Well, and you mentioned a couple times council, and I think that's important to recognize. A lot of people sometimes have it in their heads that council is able to dictate very big and very small decisions within the corporation. And I always like to point out to people, city council really only has one employee. I'll say in this case, maybe 1.5, and that council was involved with the deputy CAO hiring, but ultimately we work to set policy for the city that you implement with your aid as the deputy. But it's important for the community, I think, to recognize that the city council really shouldn't be involved at any other level than at the very senior level, and it's up to you then to take what city council says, as you mentioned, Erin, know the priorities of city council and implement them through the corporation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the, and it's not just the CAO, deputy CAO, we have a very strong senior leadership team, which really is tasked to implement a lot of the policy decisions, and there's a lot of legislative requirements that we have placed upon us by both the province and the federal government. So we have to make sure that we're balancing both the health and safety for the public, clean, drinking water, roads that people can travel, parks that are accessible, buildings that are accessible. All of these things are really tasked down to staff, and it's my job, Erin's, along with the entire senior leadership team, to make sure that we are balancing the objectives the council sets and the policies along the lines with the provincial regulations that we have to maintain as well. So it's a delicate balance of trying to manage both community expectations, council expectations, at the same time making sure that everybody's healthy and safe moving forward. So it's quite an interesting portfolio every day.
It definitely seems that way. So, I mean, the interesting thing for both of you, I think you both came into your current roles during the pandemic. So give me a sense. That's a tough way to start. I mean, it was tough to navigate as at the time a city councilor to come in and start a new role within the organization. Dave, I know you had been as the deputy CAO for a number of years, but Erin, you came in after a 10 to 12 year absence from the city of St. Catharines. I'll look to you first. What was that like coming in that situation?
Well, I think it was balancing two things. So first and foremost, it was understanding that the leadership team that was there and the staff that are there had been through a very difficult time since March of 2020. And being mindful of that people were being asked to do more with less. They were being asked to make changes that normally would have taken 10, 15 years in a normal organization and implement them in weeks or months. So I think it was important coming in after that experience to be mindful of that and sympathetic to what folks in the organization and our community, quite frankly, had been through, because it's very easy to step in at that point in time and be eager about the future. We really had to recognize what our community had been through in those 3 years. The other thing, though, that's exciting is that there was a lot of innovation through that time. And something is speaking with members of council who were here last term, who I'm sure never expected to be governing an organization during a global pandemic, and speaking with them that they truly appreciated staff's ability to think differently. And they hope, even when it's not completely necessary to do so, that we continue that spirit of innovation as we go forward, maybe in a way that's a little bit more sustainable and thought through, but that's something that we're hearing loud and clear, and we're trying to instill as a permanent part of our organizational culture.
Okay, so you mentioned innovation, and I love that because it's an easy segue. The people strategy. This was obviously a very major innovation that was brought about. It was discussed, it was passed in principle by the last term of council in 2022, but it was put into the budget this year. And there was some conversation around it, a lot of questions within the community. Give me a sense. What is the people strategy? Why is it important in St. Catharines?
Maybe I'll start. And it actually builds off of what we learned during COVID and during the pandemic, where, we had to rely on every employee in the corporation to adapt to a new world in the situation of, whether it was working from home or whether it was trying to interpret different legislations and public health requirements that were coming forward. So it really provided an opportunity for the employees to step up and to come up with ideas that typically wouldn't have been able to happen over a period of time because it would have went through a formal process. We didn't have the luxury of time during COVID to be able to do that. But what it highlighted to us was, there are a variety of things that are in place. And if you want to be a corporation, if you want to be a community organization that truly reflects and responds to the expectations and the services that people expect us to be able to deliver, you need to have the right people. And COVID really changed the dynamic quite a bit, where it's an employee market and things have changed. We now have work from home and different types of situations. So our competition for employees is no longer just within a very small geographic circle. It's quite honestly, it's across the province. And in some cases, it's beyond that when you now have the ability to work in different organizations remotely. So having said that and seeing what our employees were doing over the course of the last 3 years, and myself being, going through the whole organization at various levels within, you really understand that there is a ton of resource that we have within the halls of not just City Hall, but every building we have, every truck that you see on the road, every park that you see. There's such a wealth of expertise there, and we need to find a way to make sure, number one, that they have safe environments to work in. Number two, they want to stay and continue to work with us. And number three, those who are looking for employment want to actually come to the City of St. Catharines and be an employer of choice. So that's the high level. There's some real specifics that we included in the people strategy that maybe Erin wants to add to.
Yeah, I think that what we heard from some key experts in this field as we were thinking about, the challenges we were facing over the last 2 years go beyond theory. There's continent-wide lifeguard shortages. There's shortages in key professions that we need, like planning, building, engineering, legal, and a myriad of others. And there's just not enough talent in this space. So we asked, how can we compete? How can we make sure that the services we are providing to the residents and businesses of St. Catharines aren't compromised because we're not able to compete? So what we heard is that really the sky's the limit if we can make sure that our compensation is in the ballpark of what other municipalities offer, if we're offering training and career development, and if we're offering more workplace flexibility. We can stay in the game for that competition for talent if we do those things. We also looked really hard at health and safety to understand how our community is changing, making sure that people who work for the city feel mentally and physically safe to come into work, because that's just the foundation. We know that employees who come to work happy and engaged, there's a direct correlation to exceptional customer service, and that's our end game. Something else we're doing over and beyond is really making sure, as our community changes, as our workforce changes, that everyone who comes to the city, regardless of background or lived experience, feels that they belong and they're part of the city. So we're doing a lot of investment in diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure that we understand what our weak spots are and doing the heavy lifting involved in making sure that that becomes a reality in our organization and being a leader across the sector in that. So we're very excited. I wish that residents could see what we see every single day in terms of the commitment, in terms of what our employees are achieving for our community. In the past month alone, just amazing accomplishments. If you take the incident that happened in Port Weller, we had a serious industrial fire. From the response of St. Catharines Fire Services to the folks working with our community partners to helping the evacuees. Just an amazing point of pride, and so incredibly grateful to be part of this team. This month alone too, we had some of our lifeguards literally save a life at the Kiwanis Aquatic Center. And hearing from the doctors that were involved saying without a shadow of a doubt, it was the actions of these lifeguards and our aquatics team that are the reason why this person is still with us today. It's moments like this that Dave and I get to see every day, and we hope we can do more to share these types of things with our residents so they understand just how committed the people who work for our city are to the success of our community and the people who live there.
I am so happy that that's where you finished up with, talking about the amazing people that we've experienced in the last couple of months. Thank you so much, Dave, Erin, for coming and giving an insight to the community. This was fantastic. The time flies by, but I appreciate you coming, and I'm sure we will have you back. Coming up next, we are going to be talking to Doug Hamilton about the 2022 Canada Summer Games and the legacy that it will bring to St. Catharines and Niagara. Welcome back, St. Catharines. Up next, we have a real treat for me, and I have a whole bio here. It's going to take me a minute to get through that. But sitting with me is St. Catharines resident with a storied athletic career, an Olympic medalist in 1984, a world champion in 1985 in rowing. His career as an environmental lawyer here in Canada at one of the premier law firms, volunteer contributions across the Canadian amateur sport landscape, including the Vice President of High Performance at Rowing Rowing Canada, a board member of the Canadian Olympic Association, the Vice President of Sport and Venues of the Toronto 2008 Olympic Bid Group, the Chair of the Canadian Sports Centre Ontario, a board member of Toronto 2015, the Chair of Niagara's Bid Group, and the Chair of the Niagara 2022 Canada Summer Games Host Society. His wife, Lynn, is also an Olympian in basketball, and he has 2 sons, both of whom have played in the NHL. Dougie, currently with the New Jersey Devils, and Freddie, who's retired but is now pursuing an MBA at Yale. And in his spare time, as I mentioned, led the charge in hosting an incredibly successful 2022 Canada Summer Games here in Niagara this past year. Doug Hamilton, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
I will say, when I read a resume like that, I feel really guilty that I have not accomplished anything in my life, and I probably won't stack up. But like I said, I appreciate you being here. Listen, let's talk a little bit about the Games first. The Games mission was to provide a transformative Canada Games experience for the Games participants and the people of Niagara, and in doing so, create stronger communities. So tell me, how do you feel your Summer Games accomplished that mission?
So we did a great job with the Games. Our team was incredible, but more importantly, it was the effort of the team. And our team really was a Niagara-led and Niagara-delivered Games. This is the first time a Canada Games have been delivered by a region of the country. Usually it's a single municipality. We came together as a region of really 13 municipalities, the 12 local municipalities plus Niagara region. And it was that unity that led to the success of the Games. It was really everybody coming together, and it was spectacular Games.
Well, as a participant, not as a participant, I only wish my athletic career could have gotten me to a Canada Summer Games. As a spectator, I will say you, I think, accomplished everything you set out to do. Everything I've heard, everything I've experienced firsthand, accomplished the mission, but how did you do it during a global pandemic?
So the pandemic was a challenge for us. I won't, there was issues. It caused a delay of a year. That delay ended up, while it was a lot more work and we had to work through a lot of issues, we had supply chain issues, we had a number of things that we were worried about delivery right up till the last minute. They all came together, including the construction at Canada Games Park and the Henry Rowing Centre, and so some of our facilities were done in time that wouldn't have been done had we not delayed the Games by a year because of the pandemic. But the thing that was, I think the thing that was the silver lining of the pandemic is that it ended just before the Games, and we all needed to come back out of our homes. And I think the fact that the Games gave us all an opportunity to come out and have a community celebration again, and for the athletes to come in from across the country and get together again when they hadn't been able to do that for 2 or 3 years, I think that was the silver lining, is that the timing happened right after the pandemic. And it just increased the celebration and all of our need to celebrate.
I love that you say that, because that was what it felt like. Again, as a spectator, it felt like the release that everybody had been looking for, and finally an opportunity to get back in large groups and celebrate something. I know at the opening ceremonies, I just was an incredible event. I got to bring my mom, and I couldn't peel the smile off of her face for about 3 weeks afterwards, because she just finally got to be back in that large group venue and feel that happiness. So kudos on that. Broader than that, though, there was an economic benefit. And I had the benefit a couple weeks ago of listening to the sort of Games wrap-up presentation. But could you give a sense to the community of what that economic benefit looked like?
Sure. So you see the economic benefit from a Games like this in different ways. The 2 weeks of the Games alone generated, we've now done the study, $350 million of economic activity. Most of that in Niagara, which was a huge boost to the local economy, again, right after the pandemic and through the pandemic. And so that was really important. But it's, in addition to that, it's all of the equipment that is left for Niagara. It's the facilities and the upgrades to facilities that is left for Niagara. And then we've been very fortunate that we ran the Games with a surplus. Yeah. And so we're going to have a surplus that's going to continue to fund Sport Niagara and legacy operations, legacy sport initiatives in Niagara. And so our economic results were very positive.
Well, we're going to come back to that surplus and it funding Sport Niagara in a minute. I do want to just ask, though, what was your fondest memory from the games, the 2 weeks of the games? What was the memory that stands out the most for you?
So the memory that stands out most for me was watching one wrestler, a wrestler from Nunavut, a young man who dedicated his effort to his brother who had taken his life and passed away some time ago, came to the games, and he was Nunavut's first gold medalist. And he and his coach, the emotion that they showed and the relief and the celebration of victory was one that I'll remember forever.
I think that one is probably pretty high up on a lot of people's memories. The embrace at the end of that was pretty incredible to see. So we talked about legacy, and I think for a lot of us, especially elected officials who had an opportunity at one point or another to vote in favor of bringing the games, making the financial contributions, legacy was the biggest thing for a lot of us, the thing that we all sort of keyed on. Talk a little bit about the legacy of the games. As you said, there was a surplus. That surplus was always understood to be funding some form of legacy. So what's that going to look like in Niagara?
So the legacy of equipment and facilities, those have already gone out into the community. So we've already moved across the Canada Games Park to the consortium that's going to manage it, and the Henley Rowing Centre is going to be managed by the rowing community. And all of the equipment has gone back out into the community, sport equipment across Niagara, back to the college, back to different places. And so the sport equipment's all moved back. In terms of the cash surplus, the plan is, and we've already started this, we've created an organization called Sport Niagara. We will move the surplus into a legacy fund, which will then go to be managed by Sport Niagara and to fund Sport Niagara's activities. Sport Niagara as an organization will do a number of things to advance sport in Niagara. One of them is to attract future events and also to assist in the hosting of future events. And those two things are a little different, attracting and hosting. So as an example, Sport Niagara has already helped the Niagara Ice Dogs in their bid to host a Memorial Cup for 2024. Yep. In the event that bid is successful, Sport Niagara will also help the Ice Dogs host that event and to manage that event. They're doing the same thing, Sport Niagara is doing the same thing for the World Rowing, where it's working with the group that's organizing the World Rowing Championships in 2024 here in St. Catharines, and Sport Niagara will help to manage and deliver that event. And it really is it's an organization that draws on the experience and expertise from our games, brings back the volunteers, and there's so many volunteers that were involved in the games that want to be involved in future sport events, and so we're really bringing together the community to help deliver future sport events for Niagara.
So touching on the volunteer capacity that you had during the games, can you discuss a little bit? I mean, I know thousands of volunteers obviously are required for something like this. What was the feedback like from the broader community with respect to volunteering opportunities? And does this create sort of a base for those volunteers that are going to be necessary for whatever events we're hosting in the future?
Yeah, so great question. So our volunteer team was really the strength of our games, strength of our host society. It's the reason we were able to achieve what we did. And it was a team of just less than 4,000 volunteers that came together both to plan and to be there during the 2 weeks of the games. So many of them have come back to us and said, that was great. We had a tremendous time. We learned a lot. We had an amazing time. When can we do it again? And so it's really important for us to keep that group engaged, to give them another opportunity, give Niagara another opportunity to have a celebration like this. And so many sport events are great for the youth that participate, but they're so great for the community to come together and to celebrate the hosting of an event like this. And so we're looking forward to doing it again.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you to put your future-telling cap on for a second. It's 20 years from now. You and I are sitting down. We're having a coffee in downtown St. Catharines. What's the story you're telling me about what's happened with sport in Niagara and Sport Niagara over the last 20 years or the next 20 years?
So the first thing I think that's important is that we want to really inspire our youth. We want a lot of the kids in Niagara to see that there's a future for them in sport. It doesn't have to be professional sport. It can be amateur sport. It can be whatever they want to do in sport. But sport is such a revealer of character, a builder of character, and we want to give that opportunity to our kids to let them grow to be what they want to do in sport, hopefully many of them go on to be Olympic world champions, and that's important. To do that, one of the things you need is to have these kind of sport programs running through Niagara, to bring in events so that the kids can see the next generation. They can see what they can aspire to be. And that's really important to a kid, is for a kid to see the next Usain Bolt, the next Wayne Gretzky, the next one. And to see that and to envision themselves doing that. And so that's important. I'm hoping that 20 years from now we'll have lots of kids doing that. I'm hoping that we'll have lots of events happening here where Niagara is seen as the sport hosting mecca of Canada, and people want to bring their events here. We have so many other things in Niagara that can go around to be part of a festival in addition to the sporting event. So I'm really hoping that we can be the center of sport for Canada.
Well, I'm looking forward to helping you make that a reality.
Thank you.
Doug, thank you so much for your time today, and just for sharing a little bit about what's going on and what's going to be happening in the future. I know the community appreciates it, and as I said, I have a template resume that I now have to try and work towards, so I appreciate it today.
That's just a sign of how old I am more than anything else. So thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you so much, Doug. We will be right back. St. Catharines, thank you for tuning in for this episode. I sincerely appreciate you taking some time to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the city of St. Catharines. Thank you to our CAO, Dave Oakes, and our Deputy CAO, Erin Ohoski, as well as Doug Hamilton for joining me today. If you have any ideas for people, groups, events you think should be featured on talkSTC, feel free to reach out, mayor@stcatharines.ca, and we will get you on the show. Thank you so much again. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.